Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I actually haven't done any personal posts on my channel as of yet. When you look back at my previous videos, it's all been sort of concert videos and things like that. But recently I just felt like kind of starting it up again and, using it to kind of share my opinions on things, possibly like vlog a little bit, things like that. So I thought I'd do a video today just as it's World Mental Health Awareness Day, and it's a topic that's quite close to my heart really. So those of you that don't know me, I'm actually a midwife. I was previously working in London, but then I've just moved to Essex just before Christmas last year. And I've recently transferred to work at the hospital near to my new flat. So obviously in my job we see a lot of people that are suffering from various different mental health issues, ranging from sort of anxiety to full-blown disorders. So we do see kind of like the whole wealth of how mental health can affect people, and I've seen quite serious cases in my time as a midwife. So for me, mental health is really, really important, and I think as everybody can kind of see, there's just been so many cuts to services and things like that, and I just think it's one of those vital services that it just should not happen at all. And I mean, I know the NHS is struggling across the board, and obviously I'm first-hand witness to that as a midwife, on the front line. And it is a struggle, and actually I've not spoken that openly about it before because when you're sort of suffering with anything, you kind of feel like you don't want to burden people, and you're scared to sort of talk out about it. But more recently, I found that I'm suffering sort of worse and worse with anxiety, and that's all around kind of my job and the pressures of it. It's a very rewarding, amazing job, don't get me wrong, and I obviously started really hard for it. It took me 3 years to train to be a midwife, qualified 5 years ago now. So that time has absolutely flown, and it has been the best choice for me in terms of career. It was something that I would always wanted to kind of get into, and I was just always interested in pregnancy, and I've always wanted to be in a career where I help people. So it was really important to me to do a career that was meaningful. And I previously actually worked in retail, and it's, as most people know, again, it can be stressful in different ways, but it's very sort of the same each time you go in, not really anything different, nothing really, out of the norm of what you normally do on your shift. But in midwifery, it's very different to that. You're constantly on your toes. You just don't know what's going to happen. It's really unpredictable. And obviously sometimes it's life-threatening, to the mum or the baby or both. And it can be a split second decision that can determine someone's outcome. So it's really stressful in that sense to actually manage, because sometimes things will happen and you don't get time to then go away and turn off and process it. You just have to go on to your next client. You have to go back in the next day. You have to carry on. And actually, I've just finished reading Adam Kay's book, This Is Going to Hurt, and it's fantastic, and it was so relatable for me. And we work very closely with junior doctors, so I completely relate to his story, and you can tell through the whole of his book, the main theme that runs through it is just how many times he's had to sacrifice going to weddings, going out with his girlfriend, meeting up with friends, just doing regular things that we should all have the chance to do as a healthy work-life balance. And it's constantly ingrained in the book that there were many occasions he had to miss out on things, and I think in the end of the book he eventually kind of splits up with his girlfriend, Sorry if you've not read the book, I've just done major spoilers there, but it is definitely worth the read. But yeah, it all plays into the fact that obviously we do long shifts, unless you work in, you know, one of the clinics or out in the community, which I did do previously. And that actually was a really good experience, and I really actually enjoyed that side of midwifery. Mainly because, you know, you really get to sort of manage your workload a bit more autonomously. You work with GPs in the community and the health visitors, and you really get to know your women. Whereas when you're more hospital based, you know them for that shift, and then you may not see them again, or you may see them for 1 or 2 shifts, but it's a different kind of bond because you're seeing them throughout the whole pregnancy and afterwards, and you're really, you know, educating them and getting them ready. And I found that the most rewarding area actually. And I'm very keen to sort of go back to that, because I think that was definitely my sort of strongest area. But at the moment it's just not feasible because of the fact that when you go into community, you're obviously doing sort of more normal hours, you're not doing nights. You do a couple of weekends, but not all the time. So it means that your pay is like significantly lower. So that's another factor that's kind of played into my anxiety as well, is that, you know, as I said, I bought my flat just before Christmas last year, and I've kind of been plodding along, managing it okay. But with the move to my new hospital, it's been a bit of a change because I've moved out of London. The pay drops a little bit because you get what we call inner London waiting, and basically you get a couple of £100 extra just purely for working in London, and because of the you know, the extra costs and things of living in London. So I've kind of lost that. I get sort of London fringe where I am now, but it's, you know, about £300 less. So my money's taken a big hit. On top of that, you know, there's been payroll issues, which meant last month, end of September, I should say, I got paid like the least I've ever been paid as a midwife. It was ridiculous, to the point where, you know, I couldn't pay my bills fully. So I had to extend my overdraft. I've had to work overtime shifts. You know, I did 5 nights in a row last week, and it almost led me to a bit of a breakdown, to be honest with you. You know, a couple of the shifts were fine, and then a couple were horrendous, and you know, you just get so tired, and I'm still recovering now, and it's like the next week. So, and I'm not the only one that does that. A lot of my colleagues all do kind of overtime shifts to bump up their money, because, you know, we do get paid a good wage, but for what we do and the hours we do, it's not enough. And, you know, most of us are just barely getting by. And I'm so proud to have my flat. I'm so grateful and so lucky and so pleased that I was able to get myself into a position to be able to buy my flat. And it's one of the best things that I've ever been able to do. But obviously we all know it does come with a lot of responsibility, and does come with, you know, the pressures of maintaining it and being able to, you know, pay your bills. So it's been a big sort of culture shock for me this year. But I'm hoping that it will all kind of resolve and get a bit better. But at the moment it's been a little bit of a struggle. So that's kind of another reason why I've been kind of suffering a little bit lately. And as you all know, like when you're worried about money, when you're worried about, you know, the stress of your job, and you're kind of, you know, in two minds of whether actually, can I maintain this career for the long term? Because I absolutely went into midwifery thinking I would do this for my whole life, or my whole working life, I should say. But lately, with how it is, it's very hard to see how I would manage to work in this profession until retirement, because it is so hardcore and so, you know, pressured, and it puts a lot of strain on your outside life as well, you know, outside work life. And it's just, you know, I can't really see that at the moment, but I do love what I do, and I am passionate, and I want to give the best care, and I want to be there to support women and families. And as I said, it is the best job I've ever done. And women and families are so appreciative of, you know, the care you give and, you're there for such a special part of somebody's life. And I just think that, you know, the government are just not understanding the importance of the NHS, where it feels like we're an afterthought when actually we should be one of the priorities, because, you know, we're providing vital care. And it's getting to the point, you know, where staff shortage is becoming dangerous. You know, some shifts there's barely enough midwives to cover, you know, the wards and to cover the workload. And it's scary when you're there, because you're thinking, well, if something happens, who is going to, you know, be there to help and to support? And somehow magically people appear when there is an emergency and it's dealt with. But it just scares me and worries me that, you know, I could be involved in something, and I really, really don't want that to happen. So I try my utmost best to obviously provide, you know, safe, effective care 100% of the time. But as I said, sometimes we are so tired, we're so burnt out that you just keep going and going and going, and you think one of these days I'm going to make a mistake. And as like in Adam Kay's book, it was a really sad situation that he was involved in that actually made him have to step away from the profession and change profession, and he couldn't continue anymore because it was just too emotionally taxing. And I can totally understand where he's coming from. I am lucky enough not to have been involved in kind of like a major incident, or, you know, anyone passing away under my care or anything like that, thankfully. But I can only imagine, you know, how hard that must be. But, you know, the consensus from where I worked previously in London to where I'm working now, all the midwives feel burnt out, all the midwives feel underappreciated, all the midwives feel underpaid and are struggling, and having to practically kill themselves to do extra shifts to, you know, afford to live. And, you know, I don't have a family to support at the moment, but I honestly don't know how my colleagues manage it. But yeah, as I said, these stresses have always been there, but it's only been the last couple of weeks I've kind of found myself really struggling. And especially this last week, I've been having problems with my sleeping. Like, I've been kind of really tired one night, going to bed, getting up okay. The next night, trying to go to sleep, can't go to sleep, and then exhausted the next day. You know, and then the other day I woke up at 5 in the morning, which for some people is a normal time, I guess. But for me, if I'm on a day off, I wouldn't normally get up that early at all. So I think I'd set my alarm for like 9 a.m. But woke up at 5 and then was kind of trying to get back to sleep but couldn't. Ended up kind of getting up and waking up. And then by sort of 11 o'clock, I was exhausted again and ended up falling asleep. You know, I was trying to stay awake and my eyes just closed and I was asleep until, you know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is not normal. So, you know, I think it is really important for those sort of suffering with similar things, or to, you know, those suffering with depression or other disorders, definitely seek help. You know, I'm planning to see my GP, I think, in about a week's time or 2 weeks' time. But that was the nearest appointment I could get. You know, the GP surgeries are stretched as well. You know, recently I've started suffering with palpitations. And one night shift after work, I had to go to A&E because it was the weekend and all night they'd been really, really bad. So I was worried, obviously. Went and was checked out and everything looked okay. But the doctor in A&E said to me, well, you need to book with your GP to have like a 24-hour ECG tape. And basically what that is, for anyone that doesn't know, is basically like it traces your heart pattern for 24 hours. Just to make sure there's no abnormalities or anything like that. So they're doing that as a precaution, but my bloods looked okay and I had an x-ray and that was okay. But it's only kind of been recent that that's started, and I do think it's where my levels of anxiety have increased so much. And I'm constantly overthinking, my brain just doesn't stop, and I think that's part of the reason why some nights I can't get to sleep until, you know, 1:30 in the morning. And I have to be up in the morning at 6:30 to get ready and go to work. So it can be really difficult sometimes, and you just sometimes feel like you just don't want to get out of bed. And, you know, you have to put up your socks. You know, I have to provide a service. If I don't go in, they're going to be short. And, you know, it can then lead to, you know, more stress on my colleagues as well. So it's very tricky, and it's something that I'm kind of dealing with at the moment. And I'm very lucky to have, you know, supportive family and friends. And my partner is amazing. He's always like at the end of the phone, and he's always, you know, picking me up and basically supporting me through and being the one to be like, no, you're fine, get up, let's do something. What can we do to make it better? And, you know, at the moment, he really is my rock. So I thank him for that. And it goes both ways, you know, you will always have periods of time in your life, I suppose, when things are not so easy. But all we can do is keep going. And I think in terms of mental health, you know, really talking about it with someone, talking through your issues, because, you know, I was building mine up, keeping it inside and not really saying anything. And that's when it gets worse, because when you kind of offload it and talk to someone, you feel so much better and a bit more like, okay, I'm not alone in this, and, you know, I can manage this. Whereas when you're bottling up, you get to a point where you just feel like you're going to explode. And that was kind of me, one of my shifts last week. I just kind of thought to myself, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do first. And it was just like, my mind was just like buzzing. And I was just, it's like your brain's going 100 miles an hour, but you obviously can't go 100 miles an hour. You have to take things one step at a time. And it's something that I constantly have to kind of try and do. I've always been an overthinker. I've always been an over worrier. But as I say, as you get older and you have to deal with real sort of adult serious issues and situations, you know, it does get worse. So your ability to handle things, you know, get harder. But I think having good family and friends around you, good support, you know, seeking help from doctors when you need to, you know, taking time out for yourself. So whenever I'm on days off, I try and go and see friends, I try and go out for the day, I try and do something to make the most of those days, because, you know, otherwise you just feel like you've got no work-life balance whatsoever. Some days though, on my days off, I will be so tired, I will literally just want to sit on the sofa and watch movies all day, and that is also fun, to have, like, you know, me time and just relax. But it's getting that balance, and I think I'm quite good at doing that. But as I say, mentally lately it's been a little bit more difficult. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I just wanted to sort of speak out, because I know that, you know, we're kind of doing really well at the moment, I think, with people speaking about their issues and speaking about their experiences. And I think it's good, because the more we talk about it, the less of a stigma it is when people, you know, have mental health issues, and they feel that they can speak out and can seek help. And, you know, from my point of view, even though I have my struggles, I'm always willing to be there as an ear to listen to people, and to support them as best I can. And that's obviously part of my job as well. And I'm doing that constantly. So yeah, basically I just wanted to do a quick video just to express my feelings on it, and just to say, you know, we are all strong, we're all warriors, we will all have our times when we're low, but as long as we can pick ourselves up and keep going, that's the main thing. And, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help ever, and don't feel like you're worthless, because we all have a worth in this world, and we are all, you know, vital to our communities and to our family and to our friends. And you know, I think we all need to just stick together a bit more and be a bit nicer to each other, and support each other a bit more, really. And that's basically my message, really. Hopefully I'm going to be posting sort of more videos as and when I can around my shifts and things like that, but I really would like to sort of do a bit more of this if I can. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Do subscribe and do like if you enjoyed, and feel free to leave comments below if you wish. I'm happy to kind of talk to people, as I said, you know, listen if you just want someone to talk to. And I'm sending you all positive vibes, and hope you're all having a nice evening, and I will see you again soon. Bye.